Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Jill Barnett, HR expert, founder of Valley Consulting Partners, dedicated to empowering businesses and individuals through innovative, people-centric solutions. Welcome to the show, Jill.
Thank you so much for having me. So excited to have this conversation with you, AJ.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show, Jill. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll talk about leadership. We'll talk about how leadership is ready for the future. We'll talk about, as I said, looking future ready leadership. All in this backdrop, we'll have our conversation. But Jill, before that, let's learn a bit about you, your background, your journey, so that the audience knows a bit more about who they are listening to.
Wonderful. So I am located in Seattle, Washington, in the U.S. I've been in HR for 16 years. I've started my way actually in banking, and I've always found my way in kind of financial services. So while through banking, I went through a couple of acquisitions of different banks, which was a very unique experience. And then I found my way to a payment processing company. In fact, while I was doing HR, building their entire program, I also had the opportunity to manage IT, to manage operations. So I was able to run many different divisions and really understand how to run that business. And then I pivoted to wealth management. So for the last 6 years, I've really spent my time focused on employee change management, how we think about employee experience, and also how we start to think about the integration and leveraging this new technology coming out, AI. Everyone's talking about it, and everyone wants to know what I should be thinking about today to prepare me for future leadership.
Absolutely. Future leadership. You said you are from Seattle, and that reminds me of the movie called Sleepless in Seattle. Well, that was a different sort of a movie. If I understand, a lot of leadership and leaders are spending sleepless nights to understand what's going on in the backdrop of the great resignation and quiet quitting, and also trying to understand what's going to happen in the future. Because a lot of people are talking about why not make the CEO's post itself, you give it to AI. In all this backdrop, let me ask you this question, Jill. Is the leadership, are the leaders of today ready for the future? Help us understand, how do you see it from where you see it?
Yeah, I think leaders right now are starting to ask the questions. What do I need to be prepared for? And what should I be thinking about for the future? And for me, AJ, I think that's a win. I think for leaders to be asking the question to say, what is in my blind spot that I'm not aware of, is the first step. And I think the future of leaders, if we think about it, we have so many different generations or individuals in our workplace today. So as a leader, we're feeling more challenged about how do we interact with those different individuals and make sure that we're connecting with them. And so I think the future of leadership is really going to rely on us to be really adaptable and think about how are we connecting with different individuals and people. We're going to have to adapt to others. People are not going to need to adapt to us as leaders anymore. So we just have to change our thinking in some ways.
Absolutely, change your thinking. So let's look at leadership from two aspects. One is the organizational aspect. Do they need organizations more, or organizations need these leaders more? Because a lot of time leadership is always in transition. If it's the top management, many a times, and unless you are the owner or or the founder of the company, you might be looking at all the time for a better position, bigger company, better bonus for yourself. So in that is why I asked, in terms of organizations, how does one leader is ready for contributing to the organization, and along with that,
Yeah.
how are they ready, how much are they ready for the future to contribute to individual growth? Because that is what led to the great resignation, a lot of quiet quitting. Are they ready to you? Do we have empathetic leadership? Is there an injection that can be put into such people to get that empathy? Can they suddenly get it? That to going into the future? Help us understand. That is why I asked: is the leadership ready for the future, or will it be a different sort of leadership tomorrow? Help us understand both from an individual perspective. What do they expect? What about organization? What will be they expecting from the leadership of tomorrow?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. When we think about, is leadership ready today? I think the answer is no. I think that there is a lot of empathy. I think there's a lot of EQ that needs to come with not just results. I think people, individuals, professionals are more focused on how we do a job versus just purely what the results are. So I think for leaders to thrive and find success, they're going to need to be able to show kind of that empathy and show the how they lead. And what's really interesting is if we're not getting that from our direct manager, if we're not getting the vision, the leadership, and we don't want to follow them, what I'm really seeing, AJ, is that individuals themselves are now saying, I'm a leader. I'm taking it upon myself to then step into the space. And so I'm seeing a lot more activation happening with individuals to kind of own their space and say, I'm going to be a self leader. I'm going to take it upon myself and I'm going to be the leader. Even though I don't have people reporting to me, I'm still going to find the ability to influence. And so what you're starting to find is more people finding their voice in the workplace, and current leadership is having a challenge saying, oh my gosh, so many people are using their voice. And so for me, future leadership is, how do I maximize that? How do I tap into that voice? And how do I make sure I amplify it? And how am I a part of it versus being threatened or afraid of it? So I would say current leadership, lean into it. Lean into those individuals who are showing up and stepping into the space and showing self-leadership.
Absolutely, absolutely well put, and especially this point about being a part of such understanding in the future. But tell me, what does the next generation of managers look like? Will they be managers? Will they be leaders? Because the future is very uncertain. AI is sweeping in, and you just don't know who will go, who will stay. Whatever the industry says, we all know the speed of change that's happening at the moment. So, will the future manager be an AI? Will the future manager be a human? Help us understand. We are all trying to figure out. I'm trying to understand it from my point of view, because I'm not a leader. All I can do is to try and understand things better, to be able to ask better questions for my audience. Help us understand as an HR expert, Jill.
So I actually think the future of managers is going to be the most important component to a business. I actually think the power and the knowledge is actually going to be empowering that management team because of AI. They're now at their fingertips going to have access to the same information their senior executives have. It's in fact, they're going to be able to make some of those decisions themselves. And so where I actually see the opportunity for people managers is I think that they're going to be able to lead more people, therefore influence more people, drive better outcomes. I do think that there's going to be less people managers, but I would also say there's a lot of people who fell into management. It wasn't something they like to do. It's not something they want to be doing. And so I actually think there's a lot of people who would say, I would rather be on a team leveraging AI. We're going to be able to do some of the more tactical things, some of the more things that we can do to collaboration, things that can do, I need to be able to give feedback to an employee. Here are my 3 examples of the situation. I can leverage AI to give me some of that feedback to help me in some of those conversations. So as a manager, I'm going to use technology to do some of those activities. I'm going to use my time to connect with my employees, to drive engagement, to invest in their education and their development, which today I can't necessarily get to because I'm approving time cards. I'm doing quarterly reviews. I'm doing things that are a little bit more tactical from a manager standpoint. So that's what I see as the future of management. Highly critical. I think it's going to be one of the most important layers in a business. And I think top managers are going to be able to connect with individuals.
Absolutely, absolutely, Jill. Now, you brought in a very good point that employees are themselves taking that leadership understanding that, okay, I nobody reports to me, but I will take that lead. I am the manager. But then, are the organizations ready to include such thought processes within the system? You also said that managers, leaders of future will have to include those thoughts and be a part of it. But practically, where do you see it, especially in this whole backdrop of several instances of inefficient leadership, insecure leadership, unempathetic leadership in that sense? Secondly, if those individuals have that leadership capacity, why would they stay in the organization? They will go and start their own startup and rather create a new culture that befits the way they think. Our organizations then, because you see the state of entrepreneurship, I don't get to hear much about it. Before there was so much of talk. I don't know of organizations which are keeping that platform alive. Do you think in future entrepreneurship will come back to include such employees, that within the system, there will be people who will be able to get the voice instead of what they call is whistleblowers? They will be ones who will be part of the company, who will be encouraged to speak and make the company culture better. Help us understand. As I said, these are all very confusing times, but exciting times also.
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. So I think the first part of that is, how do we gather that feedback and like help amplify the voice? Because you're right, there are times that individuals might not feel comfortable coming forward. And so I think it's important to have a couple of different ways to gather the feedback. So one is to have an anonymous way that individuals can submit feedback. You also have to, whatever your industry is, right? There's certain reporting requirements like whistleblowing. So I also want to make sure that we include that. But I think the other things that we can do, employee surveys is definitely one thing. But I think the one thing that I found the most beneficial, AJ, is actually when you put together like what we call an employee council. And what that council needs to represent is different individuals from different areas of the business, from different experiences coming together, and they become almost the voice for the employee base. So the employees feel comfortable going to that council, and then that council then is responsible for giving that feedback to management in a very structured way. So I think that's one way to be able to kind of gather that feedback. And then I think the other part of that, though, it's really important, is if we think about transitioning management to that, to be able to leverage that feedback and what they're going to do with it. You can't ask employees to use their voice if you're not going to be willing to change and you're not going to do something with it. So I think it's really important to be able to gather that feedback. And then as managers and leaders, making sure that you're either implementing it. And then you say, well, what about that entrepreneurship? What if you're within a company? I think a lot of people have that entrepreneurial spark. They want to create, they want to shape something. They want to be able to leave their mark on something. And so sometimes, though, taking that leap to do it themselves and create a business, they might think that's just a little bit too much of a jump. And so what I'm seeing, though, is a lot of individuals who are saying, how can I create a unique path within, say, my company and create my own ticket or step into this space? And so what that looks like is sitting back, observing and making connections in a business, seeing what's invisible to others, and then showing that to your leadership team and stepping into the space. So I see individuals who have that entrepreneurial spirit, that leadership, who can drive impact and influence and grow within a company. And it's up to that individual. If things aren't going the way that they like, if they don't feel connected to the vision of that company, then it's time to make a change. But as long as you're feeling connected to that vision and what that company is about, I think it's always worth trying to fight another day and trying to influence to make things better and make things different.
Absolutely, Jill. Now let's look at, you talk about, AI, integrating AI ethically in managing people and processes. In a way, if you are talking with a good heart. So we'll take it in face value. Okay, Jill is talking well about things, using AI but actually organizations, not all organizations look at it that way. This is like sneakily putting AI into. I want to understand then the future organizational culture. Do you think AIs will also be like employees, will have employee numbers, as well as organizational culture will start including AI in, as part of the company culture? And there could be that by that time they will say you can't curse AI, you can't do anything, just like you can't say anything to the humans, in a way that it will, because AI may not feel bad by that time, they may not have feelings, or maybe on the way to have feelings, but that will lead to bad organizational culture. Help us understand that how does this look like, and how does this scenario look like, because you see the future is unfolding. Meta and all these people are, they are already talking about bringing creators, AI creators, into the whole meta structure, maybe on Facebook and all, and they will run as per like another human creators, which will be difficult to distinguish. So why not? Why should we shy away from understanding that AI will be also future employees with employee numbers, maybe not the same perks, but whatever we want to. How do you see it as an HR expert?
Yeah. So the way that if I really look into the future, I do see AI being a big component of businesses. But the way I think about it is not necessarily with an employee number. I love that a concept, AJ. Like I love that kind of visual of what that could look like. But I do think that there are going to be some policies and things that we're going to learn, right? Because AI is a learning machine. I think it's also really important to note that we're still in the very early stages. It is still producing some of those false positive results. So we as individuals also need to be much better about discerning information. And so I actually think the power of the manager and the leader is all about how do I interpret information? How do I validate information? How do I make decisions based on that? So if I think about the way future, I actually think there are going to be some tasks that are happening in the professional space that are going to be replaced by AI. And some of those things like scheduling, some of those things that we can turn over and we have full trust in. But if we think about it, we've been using AI for years. I mean, you're typing in an email and it gives you that squiggle line that you typed something wrong. That's AI. That is spell check telling you, right, that you're typing something wrong. So I actually think that the workers are going to find that some of their things that tie them down and tie up their time are going to go away from AI. But the things that now they're going to be able to work on, helping more people, connecting with more individuals, they're going to be able to work on the things that are more the value add stuff, which I don't know about you, but that's the stuff that I get excited about. I don't want to be sitting here filling out paperwork. Like that's what doesn't bring me joy. I want to be talking with people, helping people. So if I think about the future of AI, I mean, today people are using bots, right, to do some of that processing paperwork. Many of the large companies today are using that in the background, but their workers are now being able to be leveraged to work on new projects and new things that are going to help their clients that we're not even aware of yet. So that's what I'm excited about, the innovation that's going to come that we're not even aware of.
Right, Jill. So, as founder of Valley Consulting Partners, how are you getting ready for the future? Because the employees will be of different mode, the companies will be of different mode, their requirements will be different. Are there a lot of things? It is not an easy job, I can say for sure.
Well, I mean, just think about employees are going to be more informed. If you go to ask them to fill out a performance review, you bet they're going to go use AI. So why don't we, instead of giving them that tactical task, let's get to the core of what we're trying to do. We're trying to give feedback. We're trying to make sure that they're growing. So why don't we think differently now about how to get that end result? So I think ultimately we're just going to have to think a little bit more creatively about how to get to the same end result instead of having them do some of these more tactical things.
Wonderful. There's much to learn about all these things from you, Jill. And I'm sure a lot of people would want to connect with you, learn more from you, about your company, want to be your client. What's the best way for them to do so?
Find me online at valleyconsultingpartners.com. Connect with me there and happy to follow up. Anytime. The first conversation is always a discovery call. So it's always a free conversation because people are always wondering, can we partner? Does it make sense? let's just have the conversation. I think there's an opportunity to create a win-win for everyone, and I'm here to help make it happen.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.